promise he has to deliver on to those voters who came out in
First and foremost, and 1 out of 5 voters voted on this, and 70% of the people voted on issues, and they thought the media was inventing the controversies. It's not like they didn't hold them accountable. The Supreme Court is number 1. On repeal and replace, he has to have it, and he said he is going to have a transition element for those states, like in Florida, you know, Republican governors who have put in some form of it. There has to be a transition through it. The beauty for Trump is that Ryan et al. Have worked on all this legislation, and he is going to be able to hit the ground running. They're not policy walks he's disdained. He's had the good judgment and common sense to get back with all these people who've written the legislation already.
The progressives have a challenge now. Part of it is that you now have a lot of progressives who feel that 50, 60 million people voted to endorse the toxic parts of Donald Trump. That suddenly we now are in a country, you know, surrounded by people who, you know, are proud to be, you know, a part of this alt-right thing. And they think it was an alt-right takeover. And so progressives are overreacting to that. Underreacting, though, to what the real threats are and the real opportunities. If Trump throws 20 million people off of health care, that's going to be, if he handles this badly, and it's very hard to handle it right, then that's a huge advantage in the midterms for us. If Trump goes after, if Trump fails, frankly, to stand up right now for the Muslim community, right now Muslims are being bullied. Women wearing hijabs are being bullied, and people are saying Trump, Trump when they're doing it. Yeah. He has a tremendous opportunity, you know, this week to come out and say, I don't want that. If you fail some of these moral tests,
there will be
political consequences.
Moral and political costs. And I also think we need to hold him accountable. One of the reasons he won was he wanted to drain the swamp, right, of corruption inside the Beltway. No more deal making. His transition committee on ethics is a rogues gallery of lobbyists. He's appointed a climate denialist. That is a transpartisan movement in this country. And that's not left or right. That is human beings versus physics. But I'm just saying we got to hold Trump accountable. I disagree with Mary. I think media accountability will be critical. Too many rallies where you saw tree rope journalist. We got to find a way forward. And I'm not saying we don't try and find a way to find opportunities, infrastructure and all of that.
Can we just get back to Trump
because
for a minute?
moral and political costs.
Trump is more important than all of us. He's more important than the media. It is the ball.
Yes.
If he behaves well, personally and morally, I agree with Van on this. If he disassociates himself from forces that he unfortunately coddled and even fostered a little in his campaign, if he's responsible about the way in which he goes about his policy initiatives in immigration, Obamacare, trade, and other areas, he has a huge opportunity. Because the truth is that a lot of this stuff isn't that. There's a lot that can be done.
He didn't coddle them. Yep. He repudiated them.
And he's got to be better
all the answers are hard.
Don't you think President Trump has to be better than candidate Trump?
I mean,
yes. Okay.
One thing Bill will not like, and I think this is hopeful, this is not a popular position, but it is not pro-Trump or pro-Putin to argue that this country needs a better relationship with Russia, to partner with Russia to resolve the Syria crisis, to combat terrorism, even climate. And I will say that Donald Trump, speaking of what Van said, he did swat at the failed neocon orthodoxies of our times, which failed us in Iraq and have been discredited.
Can I have an honest moment here, people?
Please.
Van has, to my mind, retracted your white lash with what you just said. No, that we have to not focus totally on the toxic stuff. But you should, and if you don't, you're wrong.
No, you
are not, that's not the path for progressives. We've all agreed at the outset of this show that the path, which is Ellison's message, you say, is to go back to the Rust Belt and the rednecks. Oh, you're not going to get there with climate change and Putin and all the rest of it.
The people in South Carolina who run hotels, who understand their self-interest, they will be overrun by rivers and water if they don't deal with climate crisis.
Yeah, we're just about out of time. You can Alan, you said the white lash.
What I said, and I stand by it, I said that race was a part, and there was a part, that alt-right part, there was a part of a white lash. And if you listen to the whole quote, you would agree with what I said. So I don't take that back.
I did listen, and again, you said, what do I tell the kids? What I would tell your kids, I'm a black man in America who went to Yale, who's written books, who served a president, now has
I'm a ninth-generation American, ma'am, and I'm the first one in my family born with all my rights. I'm a ninth-generation American. And so we have not escaped because I went to Yale.
You should not be a racial polemicist. You should be a racial reconciler.
To say that that to me to my face. I've spent more time
Would
in
I
this
say it
country
behind your
trying-
back would be
Listen,
better?
hold on a second. I spent more time than you have trying to be a racial reconciler in this country.
Really? How do you know that? Do you know anything about me? Do you know anything about me?
Well, you apparently don't know anything about me. And
Yes, I do know. Your daddy, your grandparents were teachers. Your grandfather was a bishop.
George, this is a problem that we have right now. It is in fact the case that there was a populist revolt in this country, both Sanders and Trump, but one of them was marbled through with this alt-right stuff. If someone like myself, who is married to a white woman, who has spent my entire life building bridges, can't point out the alt-right white lash reaction without being accused of being a racial polemicist, we're going to have a big problem.
And I don't think having no sense of decency to say that
Hey,
to a
guys,
man
you know
who's
what?
been a healer throughout a horrific, brutal campaign. He has spoken sanity to power and to those who
Hey, my
defame and
deepest
debase him.
apologies. You don't know anything about me. You
Well,
don't know
let's
anything
talk
about
afterwards.
my healing. And I would say there are ways to get to reconciliation different from focusing on the toxic elements as you
You have
did
to talk
on
about
election
both.
night.
You have to talk about both.
Well
If you don't
said.
talk about both,
You
you're not
guys will
honest.
talk about it outside. We're going
The
to come
truth
back
always
with New York
hurts.
Times columnist Tom Friedman.